Hey everyone, so I know it's been a while, but yeah, now I'm back. I was in New York for a couple months for an internship, and I like to say that, yeah, I liked it. Since the Owl House Season 3 is coming up or continuing, I don't know, I've been making this for a while, so I lost sense of time, but yeah, let's get started with this video. But first, let's talk about Luz Nocera.
Oh, happy dagger, give me death!
And let me tell you, that is one hell of an opening. When creating Luz Nocera, Dina admits a lot of Luz's personality comes from her. Her creativity, her fixations, and her love for stories all stemming from her. And at some point in our lives, we go to some part in our heads to indulge in that. Yet that's the problem. However, she gets so wound up in her own creativity and fantasies, she loses any basis of reality. And her mother accepts her, but realizes clinging on to these fantasies for so long is unhealthy for her. And maybe taking her to a special camp will help her find a sense of normalcy, to find friends and be happy, but fails to realize Luz can't be normal. She can never be the normal person they want her to be, because to her, stories and fantasy is her comfort. And there are other things, but that's for another time. And to the point, when someone takes her fantasies or comfort away, it would destroy her fantasy. To the point when someone takes her fantasies or in a way destroy her fantasies is destroying what makes her comfortable. And this is where Dina establishes the next key element, escapism and fantasy, where Luz gets hit with the reality that the expectation she has for Boiling Isles may not be what she expected from the fantasy stories she read.
Give me your skin!
Now, let's talk about Ada. She's tenacious and she's like Luz if she just, did whatever she wanted. And she asks Luz for one thing, to help get something back for King if she does, she'll be taken back to her world. And also another fun fact, King is also voiced by Alex Hirsch, and Ada by Wendy Malick. And now for a history lesson. In the old days, people with disabilities, mental disorders were often sent into institutions or prisons. However, they were never given proper care. The prisoners parallel Luz in their forefront. They are all weird. They are imprisoned for who they are. They imprison them because they violate their social order. To apply limits on who can use them, and people who break these rules must be punished. It reminds me from a quote from the Iron Giant. And Luz has to embrace, but also accept the weirdness that people hated to save the weirdos, and also Ada. And a running thing I found was all weirdos must stick together. She is given a chance to go back, however, she chooses not to. And I understand that people might be confused with this being selfish or just she didn't choose to stay because it was fun. She chose to stay because she believes she can find comfort and acceptance in her new reality. Now, episode 2.
I really don't like this.
Where episode 1 found its body, episode 2 found its beating heart. The premise is simple. Luz wants Ada to train her to be a real witch, but she still refuses, instead gives her an errand. And it goes into like a D&D player fetch quest. And she meets a wizard who gives her a map, believing that she is and the only chosen one. And it's a play, a deconstruction of Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey heroic monomyth. According to the monomyth, a hero is brought into a journey through special forces beyond their own. They meet a mentor. They go through trials. And yes, it has criticisms based on sexism and mainly oversimplistic. However, it works. Yet another criticism Dina explores is the criticism of supernatural forces. Because of supernatural forces, it removes the main character from making any choices of their own. As the special forces itself pushes the character, the main character becomes reactionary to those forces and discovers the thing she did was all a lie. And the monster, true Shocker Genius, as the monster personifying the most powerful force bringing Luz to this journey, creating everything she knows and loves about fantasy, exploring her need to be self-important, love and acceptance, and her need or her desire to be the hero, to be loved and accepted. She can give into her escapism. She can give into her power fantasy. but realizes none of it is real. I mean, one thing I found in the isekai genre is that it exploits the power fantasy and then deconstructs that genre. I love the ending because Luz learns or accepts that she may not be a chosen one. She may not be a savior of the world. She may not be the most powerful person. She has to be the hero of her own story. She cannot wait for a prophecy to come and save her. She has to save herself. And I think Ada summarizes the point of this entire episode and this series quite clearly.
Look, kid, everyone wants to believe they're chosen. But if we all waited around for a prophecy to make us special, we'd die waiting. And that's why you need to choose yourself.
Now, let me talk about the Coven system. The Coven system I found kind of like functions as many fantasy magical worlds. You tend to have a system. Harry Potter has a system where each student is separated by their skills and needs and has chooses for them. Compared to Harry Potter, students can choose their classes. However, a consequence is that once they choose a class, a spellbind is given to them in which they can only practice that said magic. And let's talk about the other characters.
Oh, hey, Luce, look at all these offerings.
Oops, that was an accident.
Okay, yeah, let's be honest. We all hated Amity at first. She acts entitled, arrogant, and seems to care only about one thing. Being a top student at a school in Hexside while demeaning classmates, she seems inferior. She's a kid, let's admit it. At some point in our lives, we were assholes when we were kids or teenagers. But more importantly, all of us were scared. Understanding Willow.
Huh? Oh no. No, 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 no! Oh, come on!
Amity burns one of her memories, which accidentally causes her other memories to burn. And both Luz and Amity deep dive into their past to see what happened between them. What happened to their friendship? What happened for their friendship to fall apart? What happened that ended their friendship, and what Amity did that hurt Willow the most. As Willow's unconscious guardian keeps destroying the memories involving her and Amity as it feels total anger against her, not only for what she did to her memories, but what she did to end their relationship.
I used to be a being made of all emotions, but ever since you set Willow's mind on fire, all I can feel is anger.
When growing up, Willow developed her magical powers later in her life and was made fun for that, and was named Half a Witch Willow, forcing Amity not to invite her to her birthday. And it wasn't because she didn't like her, it was due to her status as a blight, and because of her parents' expectations.
Nonsense. Blights only associate with the strongest of witchlings. You may choose a new friend from one of the suitable companions we invited.
But they're mean. Just because you work with their parents doesn't mean I have to like them.
Good children don't squabble, dear. Sever your ties with Willow, and if you don't,
Then we will.
we'll make sure the girl is never admitted into Hexside. Now go, and try not to make a scene.
Her family comes from status and had her whole life planned out for her. From what friends she must have, what tracks she must have, her occupation, and any outside stipulations will be met with rejection. And it hit me that she only did it to protect her, and she blames herself for not being the friend Willow needed her to be. The Intruder. It's an episode where Luz wants to find her magical potential or find a way to do magic despite of her shortcomings. And an owl monster. Get it? Because it's called the Owl House and it is an owl. Forget it. It kind of reminds me of a subject that's really hard to talk about. Mainly about people finding things that are hard. When I was a kid, I found it really hard to do a lot of things that normal people could do really easily, like talk or just do other things. And when people ask me why can't I do it like they can, I just say, I'm trying. And this episode perfectly projects that Luz can't do magic like the other people on Hexside can. She can't just like use magic from her body like everyone else until she finds a way. And that's how Luz can do magic. And yeah, it's a very, very first step for her, but an important step for her. Looking back, I think that her use of light magic, or just light magic in general, will become an also important theme to the series overall. And when we think that we are in our darkest moments, there's always a bright light within us that shows us a way. Sense and insensitivity.
Well, King, it's just you and me for a while.
Hey, Luz, great news!
A story where King and Luz decide to make a novel, and King will decide to I'm gonna take the credit for myself, and becomes a successful writer. Not because his story was great, but it's entertaining, and it's also a cutthroat business. You see, the publishing process is relatively simple, but not easy. Maybe they think that being a successful novelist is just writing a story, but there are many layers to that. There are writers, there are editors, and editors that go to publishers. You will need an agent to look over your work, and that agent will send to the publisher, in which it will be sent to an editor and will check your work to check for grammatical errors, but check if the material presented can actually sell. They don't care if it's a good story, they only care if it actually sells. And doesn't apply just to the writing industry, but also to film, digital media, and also comics. That writers have to fight in order to be writers have to keep writing crap in order to remain relevant and also to feed themselves. It kind of reminds me of the death of the author trope. Escape of the Palisman. It's an episode that Luz and her friends use Albert to get a faster ride to a magical sports game. However, while doing so, Luz accidentally injures Albert, and Albert runs away from her in fear, and the episode establishes responsibility. And she has to accept that she is responsible for her own misgivings, and the fact that she is responsible for hurting Albert. And since she is responsible, she has to fix her mistakes. And it's revealed she was a Palisman herself, who was broken and fearing being destroyed, hid. And now she protects all broken Palisman that comes to her. And the reason she continued those tests is because she believed she was a bad owner. But despite her shortcomings, Albert forgives her. And now for a commercial break. So, fun fact about a pilot, it actually took a while for Dana to convince someone to make her show. She was formerly a storyboard artist for Alex Hirsch's Gravity Falls and also a director for the first season for DuckTales. She had an idea of the Owl House around 2015 after a really, really, really bad experience with a studio, which I really don't blame her. Through an interview, she wanted the show to be some things: bones, and monsters. And another fact is the main character is based from Dana Terrace's best friend, Luz Batista, who is also a storyboard artist and consultant for her show. When I was creating a show and creating these characters, we would always bounce stories off each other about what dorks we were in high school and how we would always, when we were super little, look for portals to other worlds to avoid doing homework. When the time came to finalize his character, I asked Luz if I could name the character after her, and she said yes, but you have to make her Dominican. I was like, oh yes, of course. And now Luz, the real Luz, works on the show as a story artist and a consultant. It's just been wonderful getting to work with her. The production of the series started around 2017 and created storyboards and concepts. And looking through the original concepts, I think she nailed the assignment. King was supposed to be quiet and a bit more violent, weirder, and strangely darker. Also in the pilot, Luz seemed to be able to practice magic, but yeah, I can see why that wouldn't work. And also the fact that in her pitch, she fought that Luz had to be bisexual. While the Disney executives told her that, yeah, they can have like a bisexual character, a lesbian character, but the main character cannot be LGBTQ+. But she fought, saying that, hey, you agree to it, so work with me on it. The Lion Witch and the Warden is basically a nod to C.S. Lewis's The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. In one instance, they were debating on giving Ada's introduction a more cinematic feel, but kind of like decide otherwise. Anyways, I just thought these facts were interesting, and moving on.
Wait. Is this really what you want to be doing with your life? Tossing kids from cliffs?
Actually, yes. It's been my dream since I was a boy. I was a strange child.
Enchanting the Grom Knight. So, fun fact. This episode was written by Nate Stevenson's wife, Molly Ostertag. And if you don't know Nate Stevenson is the creator of another show that is also really gay. Every year, Grom arises from the school. A student is chosen to be Grom Queen to call it back. The only problem? The monster senses its greatest fears. And let me tell you, Molly hit us hard. And what I love about this episode is how Molly asked the question, what would her actions from the very first episode affect her mother in the human realm? How she must worry that where is her daughter? Is her daughter coming back? She just disappeared. Will anyone look for her? And that is one of Luz's greatest fears that will also come to haunt her in later episodes. And Amity's fear?
Who is that?
You were afraid of getting rejected. Amity, it's okay. What if I went to Grom with you instead? Really? That's what friends do.
And it's fun. And it's just a fun episode about having fun, letting go, and just living in the moment as you realize the person Amity wanted to ask was Luz. And god damn it, this is a really great gay episode. Now, Lilith and her sister. I don't know. I really don't have much to say about Lilith, but I don't know. If I were to describe her, she serves more as a side plot. In the entirety of the first season, Lilith tries and constantly fails to convince her sister to join a coven and possibly cure her curse. And we weirdly sympathize with her because we understand she's trying all of this to protect her, save her. Even if they don't see eye to eye, they are sisters and they look out for each other. And for the final 2 episodes, I believe the majority of the first season was to build up for this very moment.
And why were you so easy to curse?
And it's revealed that Lilith was the one who cursed her. Not because she was jealous, because of jealousy that Ada was always the one who will be better than her. No matter how much she studied, no matter how much she prepared, Ada will always get the one-up on her. And due to Coven tryouts, and living with the reality that she will never know who really cursed her, and live with the sin that she was the one who hurt her the most. The introduction of Willow, and let me tell you, he is terrifying. He claims to be the one to hear Titan, or I guess you can say God of the Boiling Isles. Though not explain how or why, but when anyone dares to speak up against him, he cites Titan. And she convinces Lilith to convince her sister to get Ada, for not just to save her, but in fear of his wrath. He acts like a merciful leader, but also equally wrathful. Possibly I feel about God in a sense. He's equally just and merciful, and he makes this one thing clear. He wants the key, he wants to go to the human realm, he wants control. It reminds me a lot about, well, dictatorial, fascist rhetoric. That a fascist leader will always cite that they don't want to do it because they have to. They have to do it to prevent chaos. Chaos that will violate societal norms or other things. And leads to demeaning other horrible acts, and also defending things like murder, genocide, and many other policies. And that is my review for the Owl House Season 1. I know the whole thing seems a lot cluttered, but I promise for Season 2 it'll be more focused. And hey, I know Season 3 Episode 2 comes out sometime in January, so if by the time I upload this and the second episode comes out, well, there's always the third episode. And hey, I'll catch you guys on the other episode, and remember, us weirdos have to stick together. Bye everyone.